The story begins when a girl summons a sword in front of a temple. Her enemy suddenly attacks from inside the temple with webs which she successfully evades. The enemy spider continues to engage the girl, pushing her into a corner, so she summons the flame spirit's power and uses it to incinerate the spider. We later learn her name is Ayano, and she is accompanied by two of her friends, Yukari and Nanesi. We then see a boy named Kannagi Kazuma being invited to a meeting. It turns out that the owner of the house has also invited a psychic named Yuki, who appears to be uneasy around Kazuma. The owner explains that he doesn't care about their past relationship as long as they successfully exorcise the spirit in his mansion. When the spirit appears, Yuki immediately throws a fireball at it, but it returns the attack tenfold and destroys the building as a result. When the owner sees the creature's power, he begs Kazuma to defeat it at any cost. He then uses his wind powers to put out the fire before defeating the spirit by cutting it up with wind slashes. At home, Ayano learns from her father that Kazuma, her cousin who was expelled from the clan, has returned under the guise of Yagami Kanzuya. Someone breaks into the mansion at night and murders some members of the family with whom he has a grudge. The next day, they start looking into the dead bodies, but they have no idea who the killer is. Ayano concludes that the murderer must be Kazuma and requests permission to execute him. Her father, on the other hand, does not want her to take action because there is no evidence against him. She secretly joins Shingo on their mission to apprehend Kazuma and takes you along with her. A barrier separates Ayano from the rest of the group as they travel. She summons her fire blade in an attempt to force her way out, but it is futile. Meanwhile, at a construction site, the boys run into Kazuma. He causes their spell to explode before they launch it when they move to attack him. At the same time, the boys are attacked and killed by a wind spirit. When Ayano arrives on the scene and sees the corpses, she immediately attacks Kazuma. He attempts to explain that he is not the murderer, but Ayano is blinded by rage. When she is overwhelmed by his wind ability, she finally lends a listening ear. The next day, Kazuma receives a call from his father, General, who requests a meeting. Just then, he recalls his father, the head of the main family, banishing him for failing to defeat Ayano, who was much younger than him in battle. They meet up at the agreed-upon location at night, but Kazuma then challenges Genma to a duel. Kazuma attacks with his wind blades, but Genma deflects each one effortlessly. Genma begins to demonstrate his true might. He prepares a blue flame technique known as the Shuriken, the Kannagi clan's most powerful technique. Kazuma also becomes serious and summons a swarm of wind spirits, who gather at an incredible rate. He uses the power on Genma, who is still charging his attack, and knocks him out along with his blue flame. Following the battle, Kazuma is approached by a young boy who is disappointed that Kazuma does not recognize him as his younger brother Ren. Kazuma explains inside his hotel that he is a contractor who made a contract with the Wind Spirit Lord, just as the leader of the Kannagi clan did with the Fire Lord. Ren attempts to persuade Kazuma to reconcile with the clan, but he reveals that he has resolved never to do so because they once cast him away. The hotel is suddenly attacked at night, so Kazuma takes Ren to escape through the window. At the same time, Ayano, who has been following him, comes across the collapsing building and sees Kazuma fleeing through the window. Although they landed successfully, the enemy appears and begins to battle Kazuma. As they fight, Ren calls for assistance, causing Kazuma to become distracted and almost lose his life. Kazuma decides to pay a visit to the Kannagi family the following day. At the entrance, he encounters some disciples who accuse him of murdering their comrades. Despite their joint attack, he easily subdues their flames and knocks them down. He meets with Yugo, the clan's leader, and explains how Ran was kidnapped. When they have settled down with Ayano present, Yugo reveals that the enemy is the Fuga clan, who are powerful spellcasters. He explains that the Fuga clan, who have been serving them, have begun a revolt against them, and that Ren was kidnapped to be used as a sacrifice to resurrect their god, Ayama. Elsewhere, we see the Fuga clan preparing Ren to break the special fire seal that only Kannagi head family descendants can touch. Ayano demands the location of the Fuga clan after hearing his story in order to rescue Ren. Yugo, on the other hand, tells her she can't handle them on her own. Kazuma offers to assist and even devises a half-baked plan. Before they leave, he tells Yugo that he owes him money because he isn't doing any favors for the family who exiled him. Kazuma detects an attack and jumps from the vehicle with Ayano before it is destroyed. When Ryuya reveals himself as the enemy, Kazuma instructs Ayano to fight him at close range at all times. The battle between Ryuya's miasmic wind and Ayano's flames begins. When she requests backup as planned, Kazuma reveals that he is going ahead to save his brother. Despite the fact that Rin is forced to break the seal and release the Yama before Kazuma arrives, he saves him before the Yama consumes his soul. When asked why he sided with the Kannagi clan, Kazuma responds that the leader paid him 100 million yen. His interference enrages them, and they attack him en masse, just as Ryuya arrives to join the fight. He absorbs the power of the sealed Yama and evolves into a more powerful being. However, he begins recklessly attacking his followers before fleeing to the Kannagi clan's mansion. Ren and Kazuma discover Ayano severely injured and poisoned as a result of her battle with Ryuya. Kazuma explains that she is on the verge of death, but there is a way to save her, albeit at the expense of his precious elixir. Kazuma feeds the medicine directly into Ayano's mouth while she is unconscious, instantly healing her. They pursue the possessed Ryuya into the forest and engage him in combat. Kazuma uses his abilities to summon a powerful wind spell from above to create an opening for Ayano to strike in the midst of Ryuya's raging wind. The powerful foe, however, deflects her strike. Kazuma then orders Ayano to buy him some time to charge another spell. She tries to fight but is quickly overwhelmed. She stands up again, this time more determined, and begins pushing Ryuya to his limits. Kazuma appears, his eyes glowing blue, and informs Ayano that this is the mark of his contract with the Spirit Lord. He completely purifies Ryuya's malevolent wind with his power, giving Ayano the perfect opportunity to finish him off. Misao leads Kazuma to a remote rundown hotel, where she has some mercenaries assault him with guns. They ruthlessly finish him off, even using frag grenades to ensure his death. Ayano appears and informs Misao that such attacks cannot harm Kazuma. Kazuma then dispatches all of her hired mercenaries, including the sniper on the roof, in the blink of an eye. Ayano pursues Misao to the roof in order to arrest her for treason, but she chooses to fight back. Ayano tries to intervene with her flame blade, but Kazuma appears from above and tells her to let Misao go. Kazuma goes to her and lets her vent her rage because he is partially to blame for her brother's death. She continues to attack until she collapses, having expended all of her energy on futile attacks. When she is left alone on the roof, an unknown man approaches her and promises to grant her wishes. He bestows a strange ability on Misao, which she uses to capture and drain the life force of a large number of innocent civilians. Later, Ayano pays Kazuma a visit in his hotel suite and asks him to look into a case involving over 100 counts of deaths involving young ladies. Kazuma accepts the job but states that he will not need her assistance because she will most likely be a hindrance. She storms out of the room enraged when she hears this. Misao meets a being who reveals herself to be a seraph. They begin the ritual of ripping the souls Misao had obtained from everyone she murdered. As souls of the dead envelop and merge with Misau's, the seraph watches. During the night, an inspector named Tachibana Karika assists Misau's family in locating her whereabouts. While the others plan the operation, Ayano reveals that her job is to prevent Kazuma from interfering with Misau's execution. Misao emerges from the church to confront her father and relatives. She does, however, express her disappointment that Kazuma and Ayano are not part of the plot to kill her. Meanwhile, Ayano is preparing to stymie Kazuma, who is on his way to intervene. She attacks him in midair with a series of flame attacks before summoning her blade. Despite his dominance, he assists her before she falls to her death. Kazuma continues to stall by involving Rin, but Kazuma explains that her priorities are all wrong. Suddenly, there is a massive explosion from the church. Misao has already slaughtered her family members when they arrive. Misao launches an attack on Kazuma in order to exact her vengeance. However, the abilities she worked so hard to obtain have no effect on him. When the seraph Misao refers to his Tenchi reveals himself, she begs him for help. Tenchi then reveals that he only deceived her, and that she will never be able to defeat Kazuma. She collapses from guilt after discovering she was used as a pawn by Tenchi. When Ayano attempts to approach her aid, they are repelled by a powerful energy. Tenchi begins absorbing Misao's life force and assimilating it into his own, as planned. He then introduces himself as Michael Hurley and declares his intention to defeat Kazuma in the name of the Stars of Sagacity. He transforms Misao into the dragon Viltra and joins forces with it in battle. Kazuma Ayano uses her fire to fight the dragon, but it regenerates quickly. She continues to attack, but it regenerates. Kazuma prepares his most powerful wind attack while Ran and Ayano deal with the dragon. He returns fully prepared and assists Ayano in advancing her flames to the blue Shurnan. He lifts her above the dragon, which she dispatches with a single strike of her flaming sword. Kazuma is having dinner with Ayano at a restaurant when he is summoned by a pixie, so he goes to meet it. Outside, Tiana reveals herself and asks Kazuma for a favor. She begs him to save their fairy clan by assisting them in recovering a stolen treasure. When he asks for payment, she assumes he is there to assist them because they are members of the Wind Tribe. However, Kazuma reveals that he is under no obligation to assist them. She promises him gold nuggets and gems as payment to persuade him. He agrees on the condition that he receive half of what they own. Meanwhile, Rin is seen playing with a girl named Yumi in the park, just as some men in suits arrive and push her aside before capturing her. He defends her by confronting the men without a weapon when he notices they intend to taser her. They soon end up using their guns, so Rin melts the gun and introduces himself as a Kannagi clan spellcaster. The group's leader reveals that they work for the Tobuki family and advises Rin to step aside so that he does not start a feud between their families. Rin is hesitant to protect Yumi, but he does so anyway, forcing the man to flee in fear. Tiana also reveals that the treasure he is attempting to recover for the Pixies was stolen by the Tsubuki family. Kazuma is very interested in this information because he has been waiting for an opportunity to destroy the family who is known to control earth magic. We see the leader's daughter, Mayumi, scold her assistant for being unable to deal with Ren at the Tsubuki family mansion. While investigating the mansion, Kazuma is drawn in by a woman's technique known as Kureha. He lands inside the building and is attacked by members who are taken aback by the fact that he is a wind spellcaster. When Tana falls, he dupes them into thinking she's the treasure Ren stole and flees while they're confused. Ayumi tells Ren on the train that she intends to return to the Tsubuki family after seeing the ocean with him. Tiana inquires as to why there is tension in the Tsubuki family, and Kazuma explains that they are supposed to perform a ritual known as the Tasai. When Mount Fuji erupted 300 years ago, causing an uncontrollable disaster, the leader of the Tsubuki obtained the power of the Earth Lord and sealed the volcano at the cost of her life. Since the family has performed the Tasai every 30 years to reseal the volcano behemoth by forcing the family heir to give up her life. Ayumi explains that she is the sacrifice for the Tasai and wants to see the ocean before returning to her duty. They start making memories on the beach, but the fun is cut short when Mayumi arrives to pick her up. When Ayumi goes to meet her, she is treated harshly by her sister and Yuji, her aide. Yuji goes too far with his scolding, which causes him to run into fears again, and so he moves to challenge Ran on the beach. Ren has no choice but to defend when the fight begins because Yuji has the environmental advantage. Ren quickly wraps himself in flame, so that when Yuji attempts to control the soil beneath him, he is unable to because it has melted. Following that, he defeats Yuji with a single attack. But Mayumi forces him to fight despite his condition. Mayumi then reveals to Ren that Ayumi is a clone created from herself to serve as a sacrifice for the Taisai. Ren loses his will to fight as a result of this. So, even when Ayano arrives, Mayumi and Yuji leave the scene with no further disruption. When Tiana and Kazuma return home, they discover that the treasure has been implanted in Ayumi. Kureha then leads Yuji to a room where he discovers Mayumi and Ayumi sealed in a crystal in preparation for Taisai. She informs him that, while Mayumi is not supposed to die any longer, she may if the ritual is disrupted. Kureha is seen talking to her father, who she turned to stone for trying to stop her evil ambitions, elsewhere in the Tsuabuki mansion. Ayano and Ren barge into the mansion before the ceremony to meet with Ayumi. They are denied passage, which leads to violence. Their progress is hampered, however, by a massive stone golem. When Ayano attacks it, her flames have no effect on it. Ren soon realizes the golem is Yuji and inquires as to what happened to him. Yuji explains that he is sorting necessary powers to protect Mayumi's life by ensuring that the Taisai is not interrupted. Ren tries to talk him down, but his words only make Yuji more anxious, so he decides to smash Ren. Yuji's golem, on the other hand, is sliced into pieces, and Ren is saved in time by Kazuma. The golem, on the other hand, begins to regenerate and joins its body parts together. Ren tries to reason with Yuji once more, but he resorts to violence. This causes Ren to cast a spell on him, while Kazuma shields him from Yuji's attack. The Ran spell begins continuously burning the golem until it is purified, leaving Yuji alive in the rubble. Following that, they are attacked by Kureha, a gravity manipulator. He adds that she isn't supposed to have such skill as an earth spellcaster, so it must be the result of the mountain's sealed behemoth. Before the battle, Kazuma uses his victory to transport Ren to the location where Yumi is being held. When her guards confront him, he reveals that he just beat Yuji, and they flee in terror. Outside, Ayano fights Kure, who appears to be having no trouble controlling her flames. While in the cave, Kazuma also rescues Mayumi from the crystal, causing the cave to collapse. Kazuma then makes his way upwards to join the fight with Ayano, who is irritated that he used her as bait yet again. Kazuma reveals that Kureha does not intend to seal the behemoth but rather seeks its powers for herself. She then defends her actions by claiming that she has no choice because she was born without the ability to control Earth. Kazuma soon convinces her that she has been used as a pawn in the behemoth's revival without her knowledge. While they are watching, the behemoth's powers are released, revealing a lava monster known as Xenon. At the same time, Kureha's power is retrieved from within her and returned to Xenon, who originally owned it. The siblings start taking care of the monster together, but their attacks have no effect on it. Kureha, who has the ability to control Earth, appears on the battlefield during a stalemate. She confronts Xenon and loses her life in an instant. As they continue their feudal battle, Ayumi begins to Taisai, and Xenon's rage is temporarily subdued. This provides the group with the opportunity to have a fighting chance. Kazuma uses his contractor powers to lift Xenon away from his energy barrier, while Ayano and Ren use their flames to pierce its tough skin. Kazuma finishes it off with a wind attack that causes it to explode from within. Ren goes to care for Ayano, who used too much power during the battle. She tells Ren not to be sad because he has allowed her to live a full life. Shortly after, she begins turning into dust, leaving behind the pixie egg which was stolen by the Tsuabuki. And this brings the anime to an end.
How was the video? We hope it was good. If so, please check these videos. Also, please comment down your thoughts and your suggestions for future videos. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing now to show the support to our channel. We hope to see you soon with another video right in this channel. Have a nice day.